Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Mental Health Impact Series show. Today is season 2, episode 13. I can't believe we've come such a long way already. We host our interviews every Friday at 11 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Time. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Garth Peters from UK, talking about mental fitness using a holistic healing approach. Before we get started, did you know that holistic approach is about treating the whole system, taking into account mental and social factors rather than just the symptoms of a disease? Did you know eating whole grains and vegetables with each meal actually improves mood swings and provides healthy nutrients for the brain? Did you know that the nutritional supplements are used to balance body chemistry? I am so excited to continue this discussion and learn more from Garth regarding this. About our speaker today, Garth is a survivor of a brutal attack that hit national news. And shortly after, he lost his partner to suicide. Garth rebuilt himself, and today he is helping so many people across the globe as a mental fitness coach. I am excited to learn more about your journey, Garth. Just to add to that, he also helps people experiencing trauma, anxiety, insomnia, or people who have lost self-confidence in order to reclaim their lives through holistic nutrition, exercise, and mindful habits. Without any further ado, let's welcome Garth to our show. Hello, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. So I'm so glad for you to have me here today.
Of course, it's such a pleasure. Garth, let's start today by you sharing a bit about your journey. What has that looked like and what has brought you here today? How did you hear about Reach Out Together as well?
Okay, cool. So my journey, I'll try and keep it nice and short for you. So basically, I guess pre-2010, I didn't really know very much about kind of mental health, depression, and anything in that field really. But I started going out with my then girlfriend. Her name was Lisa, and she suffered from bipolar disorder. And I started to understand a bit more about mental health, I guess then, and she helped me to understand bipolar as well, specifically. And I kind of learnt about that in a big way over the next 2 years. So it was a very important journey for me to have that understanding of what really it means for people to be in that position, because I realized that we could all be in that position at any point, really. In 2012, we both just went out for a drink, and unfortunately, I got attacked, unprovoked attack. I got left in a really bad place. I had severe injuries to my head. I had a brain injury. My jaw was detached from my face. Unfortunately, it had been kind of shattered. I lost hearing, and I had no memory of the attack. So I woke up in the hospital and kind of trying to understand what people were explaining to me. And it turned out that I had just been attacked for no reason at all. I had to have my jaw wired back together. I've got metal plates in my face. I wasn't able to lie flat for a period of a few months because they were worried that my head might move around. So as a result, I developed insomnia, which was really kind of held me back for quite some time in terms of my recovery. I couldn't also, because of the damage to my jaw, I couldn't eat solid food for the best part of a year. So it was really difficult to kind of get the right nutrients into me. So this was kind of bad enough. A few weeks later, though, unfortunately, Lisa, she really, this whole incident hit her hard. She'd already had a really difficult life, unfortunately, that she had to deal with. And this kind of pushed her over the edge, really. And she decided she couldn't take any more. So she tried to take her own life. and a few days later, unfortunately, she passed away in hospital. And then a few months after the attack, the person who attacked me, they also they escaped. So they had been sentenced. They had been charged. They had been arrested. But when it came to actually being sentenced, they escaped. So they were never brought to justice for what happened. So that's kind of in a nutshell my story. What happened? It's three kind of fairly major events that really put me in not a great place. But really what happened to me was out of my control. So these things happen to me. It's really important to kind of emphasize that, because for a long time after that, I held on to those events as my identity. So for example, if we had been speaking maybe 8 years ago and I told you about this, I would almost expect you to treat me differently because of what happened, which is not the right thing to do, but I guess it's understandable. So what I had to do was come to terms with what happened, and really hold on to the journey that I took, which was all in my control. And that's what brings me here today.
We have a couple of comments here already from the audience. Looking forward to hearing your story, Garth. Garth, so much respect for you. Your journey is so inspiring. Absolutely. If you don't mind me asking, Garth, when did this event occur? When you were beaten up by complete strangers, you said?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we just had two people just took a disliking to us for whatever reason. Don't really know. I don't think I ever will find out. They just happened to from behind kick me in the head, and that was kind of the beginning of that whole incident. So that happened in January 2012.
And this is the first time I'm actually hearing the entire thing, and this sounds quite a bit. I just want to say, Garth, that you are inspiring in your being. You being here is important in its own essence, because there are people that may have gone through similar experiences as you, and you sharing your story and you advocating for life after is what the world needs. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Yes, of course. So how did you transition and turn your mess into that message over the years? How was that journey for you to get to that point where you were like, I'm going to invest in myself and my well-being, and perhaps becomes a certified personal trainer? What was that journey like?
Yeah, so it was definitely a difficult one, and initially it was one that I didn't really want to happen. So for quite a few weeks and possibly months after that, those events that happened, but not when he escaped. It was after I got attacked and after Lisa unfortunately passed away. Those two things, understandably, they set me back in a big way. So for a period of time after that, I really struggled, and it did come to a point where I decided I don't think I want to continue myself, and I did take steps to make that happen, but I didn't have any kind of moment where it stopped me from doing that. That night I just happened to fall asleep, and I woke up the next day and I realized actually I don't want things to go that way. I kind of was grateful that I didn't do anything. And I guess that was a turning point for me. That was a turning point. So I then kind of thought, there is actually more I want to do. I do want to feel better in myself, but actually I want to kind of use this whole experience in a positive way, because it had been holding in me in such a negative way up to that point. So a couple of things I had to do was I couldn't eat properly, like I was saying. So I couldn't eat solid food for a year, which meant that nutrition was really important for me, because initially what I started doing was having kind of like protein shakes, like off the shelf protein shakes, and they're full of like sugar and stuff, and it just wasn't doing me any good. So I was lucky enough to have my sister and my mum by my side, and they're very much in the health space already at that time. So they helped me with nutrition, and my sister even, she made me food on a daily basis, just so I could eat the right thing. So that was, amazing support that I had. But I also learned about nutrition every single day from the moment I could. And that kind of took me to the end of the year where I became a nutritionist. And also on my journey, I wanted to feel more confident. I wanted to get my kind of self-esteem back. I wanted to feel stronger. So I thought exercise would be the way to go. I tried doing running, but running didn't really do much for me at the time. Someone introduced me to, I don't know if you've heard of a program called Insanity. It's by Sean T, quite a few years ago. It's a bit of a crazy program. It goes on for 2 months. The workouts are like sort of 45 minutes to an hour. And I thought, like, there's no way I can do this because I can't even run. But I started doing it and it made me feel amazing. Like, it really made me feel amazing. And I just thought, this is what I want to do. This is how it's going to help me get through. So I did that program. I completed the 2 months, bearing in mind that the attack happened in January 2012. I started that in August 2012. So somehow I got myself to a place where I was able to do a crazy workout, 7 months later. So that was quite an amazing place to be in, I think, by then. And that really spurred me on. So I decided to start training as a personal trainer straight after that. By the end of the year, I was a personal trainer. And the other thing that happened as well that was significant for me was that I couldn't, as I mentioned, I couldn't sleep properly because I couldn't lay flat for quite some time. And there was 2 things going on. Was that I couldn't lay down because they were worried about my head, but also I have no memory of the attack. So what I kept doing was playing through events that I could remember in my head. Yeah. And there was a big, huge gap there, and it kept like haunting me because I wanted to know what happened. So one day, the detective who was over the whole case, he sat me down, and the whole event was on CCTV, so they could see the whole thing that happened. And he just walked me through the whole thing and said, "This happened, and this happened, and this happened," and that helped me piece together a lot of things. And it the next thing I did was something that I didn't realize was going to be so important for me, but I wrote down everything he said. And that was kind of the start of me journaling. Although I didn't really know what journaling was back then, if you know what I mean. So that kind of helped me close a few questions in my mind. And then from that, I started to get sleep. And I think that once I got the sleep, my recovery just kind of went so much quicker than it had done before. I felt like I was so unwell and like so kind of I couldn't do anything for myself for such a period of time. As soon as I got my sleep together, everything kind of fell into place and I was in such a better place. So those 3 things were a massive element to me getting better. And by the beginning of 2013, I took my first class as a personal trainer, and I had a group class, and I taught the class my own workout lessons, which was great for me.
That was within a year.
Within a year, yeah.
That's exceptional, Garth. Like this is a choice, and you chose it. You chose to turn what happened, and you chose to turn it into an avenue to help other people. That's just remarkable.
What it was is I think I realized how good I felt when I did things in the right way. Yeah. When I concentrated fully on looking after me, I realized how good I felt, and I immediately wanted to do something for other people. It took me a while to figure out what that was, but once I got to the beginning of 2013, and I kind of booked a place, I got this workout class together. I asked a few people to come along, and that was it, really. I realized that this was making me feel good, and it's making other people feel good. So that's where I was.
That's beautiful. We have another comment from the audience here. I am so touched by your story, Garth. You are extraordinary. Thank you for being here. I second that. So let's move forward. Let's move towards the recovery aspect. You
Yeah.
then became a mental fitness coach after a year of this. Um, First of all, for the audience that doesn't know what it is, could you explain what is mental fitness?
Yeah, so I guess initially I started off as a personal trainer, and I added nutrition to that as well.
Mm.
Um, and one thing that I kind of I just couldn't kind of get to the point where I would like take someone on for purely aesthetic reasons, or purely fitness reasons. I needed to know more of what was going on. So if someone came to me and said, I want to get fitter, I want to get like healthier, I just needed to know why were they in that place in the first place, like what was holding them back. Because at the end of the day, we can all do fitness. It's around us, and we can all kind of eat quite well to a certain degree. But there's something stopping us from doing those things on a regular basis, consistently, and really deciding I'm going to input a lot of time just to myself. The people nowadays are much better, but they still kind of put those things, self-care, as a lower down priority type of thing. So one of the things that spurred me on in that field was when I went through counselling to try and heal myself. It didn't work for me for quite some time, because I struggled to open up. But I got referred to a psychiatrist, I got referred to a psychologist, and I struggled to open up to anyone. But what did happen is that the people that were trying to treat me suggested to me that I should do counselling training because they saw something in me in terms of me wanting to help other people. So I did do some counselling training, and that really helped me kind of, I guess, add a different element to what I was doing. So to answer your question, I guess a mental fitness coach is a bit more on the mindset as opposed to the fitness and the nutrition. So the first thing I would do with someone is I would look to see what the obstacles are in their way, and that could be mentally, that could be physically, but almost always it's a mental thing that's happening, where they feel like they are stuck in some place. And that's what I would do first, and that's kind of then where I would take on to the other elements: the fitness, the nutrition, the well-being habits, the sleep, all those kind of things. So yeah, overall, I'm definitely very much into fitness and very much into nutrition, but mindset is key for me.
And who would you say, Garth, would be your ideal client? Like, who do you help?
So you mentioned it before. So in terms of people who have been through trauma, people who are suffering from anxiety, someone who's lost confidence, someone who's having trouble with sleep, those kind of things, for me are like an ideal client, I guess you could say. But anyone really, because the thing is someone doesn't necessarily know that that's what they need to get through. So for example, someone may have suffered from trauma, but they wouldn't necessarily know that they suffered from trauma, if that makes sense. They know that they're struggling with certain things. They might know that they're struggling to interact with people. They might know that they're struggling to go out in social situations. And then it's once you piece those things together, you realize, this could be trauma, or this anxiety is a result of something. So generally, a lot of clients come to me initially because they just want to get in a better place, physically, through their health and through their fitness. But I guess it's because of the message and how I'm putting myself across, that's how people think, actually, I'd like to work with you because I guess I'm not purely talking about fitness and nutrition. And I definitely do very much talk about the mindset side of things as well. And once I start to talk to people, I start to understand what it is that's going on. Like I said, whether it is a past trauma, whether it is anxiety, whether it is that they've lost confidence, and all of those things are generally, something's happened, or there's been an event that's happened, or it could be a series of events. And those things create limiting beliefs in your mind, and those limiting beliefs, often we see it as a negative thing that holds us back. And it's great to kind of switch that around and realize that limiting beliefs aren't always, they're not always negative things. They could be just the test to give us something that we need to overcome, but maybe we need to look at ourselves and change something and do things in a different way. So if that answers your question, that's the type of people I like to work with.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. We have a question from the audience. Was it hard to stay focused? Sorry, was it hard to stay motivated after you got into the fitness journey? Did you ever have moments of doubt? How did you overcome those? Good questions.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So initially, I can honestly say I had no problem with motivation whatsoever because initially I was so angry. I had so much anger inside me. I just needed to channel it somewhere, and it could have been channeled in the wrong way, but luckily I found something that just made me feel good. So that's what drove me initially. Like I said to you about Insanity program, I did it that soon after the injuries, but I think, if I'm honest with you, I think I could have done anything after that because I had so much drive inside me just to feel, just to shake that off, that feeling of someone else has control over me, that I could have done anything, but going on from that, it was there's been plenty of times where I've struggled and thought this is really hard to get clients, to get in front of the right people. But what always helped me was coming back to my own truth, if that makes sense. So your understanding what it is. Yeah, exactly. What it is I'm trying to do, because sometimes you can get caught up in thinking, I need to do the things that other people are doing, or I need to do things in the same way that others have done it. But actually, there's a reason why you started doing something in the first place. And there's a reason why you need to be you and not someone else. And that for me has always kind of kept me on a straight line, although the line has not always been straight, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. And Garth, like in your case, you didn't just go through that brutal attack. You went through loss of a loved one, right, as well. Yeah. And I can't even imagine what that healing journey must have looked like.
Well, it was difficult because like that was the reason why I did counseling, really. I guess seeing therapists did then follow on to like the attack and other things that happened as well. But initially that was the reason why I wanted to get therapy. And one of the things that I knew that I didn't want to happen was that I knew at some point I would be in another relationship with someone. And I also knew at some point that if I didn't deal with what was going on, I would bring everything that I was holding on to into that relationship. So I knew it wouldn't be a healthy thing to do. So it did take me quite a number of years before I even thought about dating anyone or anything like that. But I think it was important for me to go through that journey and just kind of deal with it. It's like baggage is such a negative word, but if I say it, you know exactly what I mean, right? So it is baggage in a way, for my own personal baggage to kind of to deal with, because what it was that I came to a point where I had to decide whether everything that happened was my fault or wasn't my fault. Because for a long time, I really blamed myself for my girlfriend taking her own life. And it's very difficult when someone is in that place to convince them that it's not their fault. Because I really believe for some time that actually if I had done something differently, or if I'd said something differently, or I've acted differently, things would have been different, and today would have been different. And although we all know that we can't go back in time, it's very difficult to convince someone that, to not wish for those things. So the most powerful thing that I came to that really helped me get to from shift from one place to another was acceptance. And just coming to that acceptance, that realization that actually it was out of my control. Like, it wasn't anything I could do, because other people have a choice. And it's not just what happened to my girlfriend, it's the whole incident. If you think about the attack, it wasn't my choice to get attacked. You know, it was that person's choice to take out those actions.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my choice for Lisa to take her own life, but she ultimately had to make that decision. And it wasn't my choice for the person who attacked me to decide they're not going to stick around and they're going to disappear. You know, that's completely out of my control. But you do run through these things in your mind and think, you know, if I'd done something differently. But once you actually come to a realization that this wasn't my fault, that I couldn't have done anything differently. You can't rewind time. You just have to accept what has happened. But you have control over what happens from now. You know, you everything you do from this moment on, you have complete control over. You can't necessarily control external circumstances. You can't control what other people do, but you have control over you. That realization, I think, is really powerful. And it sounds simple, but not everyone has that until they have to really dig deep and get to that point, you know?
Absolutely. When you pursued counseling after, was that for the very first time in your life that you went out to just talk to someone? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what
I was
you
really bad
did,
at it.
yeah, you broke the stigma that you grew up in yourself, the community that you grew up in, like you mentioned, those limited beliefs. You actively chose to find avenues to heal, Garth. And if it wasn't counseling, maybe it was a psychologist, maybe it was a psychiatrist. And then if it's not that, it could be something else. And eventually you found what works for you.
Well, I'll tell you something really powerful that happened to me. You're right. You're right. I knew I needed to talk to someone. I knew I needed to work through this.
Yeah.
But I struggled to open up. So when I actually came down to sitting in front of someone and they asked me to tell them what was going on, it was very difficult for me to not leave this mask on and just act like everything's okay. And that's why people found it so difficult to deal with me, because they just thought, well, he seems like he's okay, so what's the problem, you know? Because in all essence, I was okay when I was in that session. I just wanted to come across as though I'm fine, you know. I didn't really want anyone else to worry about me. So one of the most pivotal moments that ever happened in my life, I can honestly say, and it came quite a few years later, and it was a real moment of realization, was that I was in a coffee shop with just doing some work on my laptop, and someone that I knew came into the coffee shop, and we knew each other on like an acquaintance basis. So we would say hello to each other if we ever saw each other and say, "How are you?" And that was kind of it. That we never really went any further with our conversation than that. But he saw me. He came in. He sat down and he said, "Oh, like, hey, how are you? I'll have a maybe we should have a coffee or something. But I've only got a few minutes because I have to go to see a client." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." But for some reason, I just decided I would open up to him about everything that was going on with me, and I just basically unloaded and told him everything that was going on. And at the time, I had been through a relationship that hadn't worked out for me as well. So I guess I just wanted to talk to someone and just say, you know, this has happened. This is how I'm feeling. This is where I feel I messed up. This is where I feel someone hurt me. All these kind of things. And he just sat there and listened. And then he opened up to me about his relationships and all the things that were going on with him. And neither of us had any idea about these things that were going on with each other. But rather than us talking for 5 minutes, we were there for about 3 hours just talking to each other. And it was an amazing experience. But it was also an experience where you see all around the world, people say to talk more, and, you know, to open up. But there's still a lot of stigma about that. You know, it's still not an easy thing for people to do. But having the kind of, I don't want to say courage as in to say I had courage to do it, but having the courage to take that step and just be brave and talk to someone and say, something is going on with me and I just want to talk about it. It opens up a conversation, because all of a sudden that vulnerability lets someone else say, maybe I can be vulnerable as well, you know, and it's powerful stuff.
And you created that space by opening up yourself first. And you're absolutely right. We can continue to do that by starting to share what's going on with us, because we end up creating a safe space for other people to share as well.
Definitely.
Beautiful. We have a comment from the audience. What an incredible interview. I'm taking so much out of this with me. Thank you for sharing, and more power to you, Garth.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
We are now coming to wrap up our episode. I can't believe where these 30 minutes flew by. Where can people contact you? What's the best way for someone to reach out to you?
So I guess there's a few ways. So I'm on Instagram quite a lot. So my Instagram is garthpeters.com. And my website is garthpeters.com. So I'm on those two areas quite a lot. But also, if you go on to my website, I have a few little spaces there to add in your email address. And what I do is I run things like networking events. So it just means that lots of people who want to talk to each other, we can all get together and talk like we're talking now. And I send out a newsletter just every week as well, just to talk about what I'm up to and just give kind of an insight of what I've been thinking about that week.
Beautiful. So please make sure to subscribe to the newsletters on his website. Perfect. And lastly, what is the one message, Garth, you'd like to leave people with today? Perhaps someone who's been through similar experiences like you.
There's, you know what, I think there's 4 points that I think from everything I was saying, and I'll keep it super quick because I know you want to wrap up. There's 4 things that I think that are important from this. Is like resilience is very important, but it's not something that you just have. You have to build up resilience. And I went through a lot of experiences before what happened with the attack, etc., that helped me get through that. Like it wasn't just by chance, but I also recognize those experiences. So it's okay to sit and think about the things that you've been through and recognize how powerful you are to have gone through those things, because you built things, you built skills, you've built power in yourself. You can do anything really when you put your mind to it. You just have to believe in yourself. The other thing is that it's okay to make mistakes, because like people are afraid to make mistakes. People are afraid to like take that next step in case it's wrong. But without mistakes, you wouldn't know what the right thing is. Like you have to make mistakes to understand what a non-mistake is, if that makes sense. Yeah. The third thing is that you just need to have a bit of faith. Sometimes I think, I know for myself, I pushed myself because I wanted to make something happen, or I wanted something to be a certain way. But sometimes you just have to have faith that things happen for a reason, and if you just believe that things happen when they should happen, it's all okay. And then the last thing is what I said already, was that is that you don't have control over external circumstances. You don't have control over other people, but you 100% have control over yourself. And if you decide to act in a certain way, that's your decision, and you need to own that. So you also can decide to act in a different way if you want to. So you are in full control of yourself. And once you realize that, I think everything will be okay.
That's so beautifully said. Another comment here from our very own Ankita from our team says, it's so beautiful to watch how you've transformed your life and shifted your trauma into wisdom that people can learn from. What a lovely message, and so rightfully said. I agree.
Oh, thank you, Ankita.
To wrap this up, can you see this logo right here? Do you know what this stands for?
No, tell me.
In sign language, this means together, just putting 2 fists together. Okay. We have a circle around it just to symbolize the world. And in color healing therapy, orange brings out feelings of warmth and happiness. And our goal here at Reach Out Together is to heal the world together, community by community, conversation by conversation, just like we did today, Garth. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your time with us, with our audience. For people that are probably lost and confused and we're looking for slight motivation today, you are making a difference by sharing your story every single time. Keep doing it, and we at Reach Out Together, we're here with you. If there's anything we can do to support your journey, we'd be happy to. So let's
Amazing.
continue
Thank you.
to reach out together for better mental health. Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you so much, Garth. Really appreciate you being here. For anyone else that's still watching till the very end, thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you have a lived experience story, or if you know of a mental health professional that could add value to our show, we would love to hear from you. We would love to interview you. Please reach out to beautiful Ankita from our team. Her email is ankita@reachouttogether.com. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in to Better Mental Health for All. Bye, Garth.